Dyson spheres, galactic civilizations, AI-dominated universal conquests. These are all things that are rising in popularity among the growing astronomical community. Thanks to the internet, with things like YouTube and interesting videos and articles, a lot more attention is being paid to the more indie theoretical side of astronomy and the universe, particularly the capabilities of aliens. In 2015, we thought we'd found evidence of a civilization that was building a sun harvesting device around a nearby star in the Milky Way, and ever since the possibility of both spacefaring civilizations and star-consuming structures has been a hot topic. One outlandish urban myth even holds that Boötes void is so circular in formation because some AI-driven super-civilization is consuming the stars and galaxies within the area using Dyson shells. This is, of course, all science fiction, with much more emphasis on the fiction part than the science. However, even if it is unlikely, a race harvesting a star might not be impossible. So, what if a galactic civilization one day came knocking, with the intention of harvesting our local star? Could we stop them? Would we go extinct? How would the rest of the solar system fare? Well, that's the question we'll be answering today. To come up with a chain of events for this, I did some research into a number of topics, but I'm not denying that this isn't up for debate, so just keep that in mind. And with that said, let's take to the solar system. So the first thing that would happen in this event would obviously be the aliens arriving in our solar system. My video is based on the assumption that this is a galactic, spacefaring civilization that has done this before, and so would be pretty efficient and ruthless in getting to work. So let's presume that a heavily advanced militarized alien race arrived with the ambition of adding our star to their collection of galactic free real estate. Well, they'd probably arrive in the solar system near their prize, the Sun. A star is the heart and key component of any solar system, usually being the most massive component too. Their next steps among themselves would depend on what they wanted to build to harvest our star. Would it be a full-on sphere? Unlikely. What about a ring or a cluster? Whatever the case, the Sun is one astronomical unit away from Earth, or about 150 million kilometers. It's so far for us that even light emitted from the Sun has noticeable latency in reaching Earth at about 8 minutes and 20 seconds give or take. For a considerable amount of time, we wouldn't be able to see what they were doing, with the brightness of the Sun making noticing the arrival of spacecraft very difficult and the delay in processing radio images. It's safe to assume that they would have already set up shop around our star and would be ready to crack on. Once we finally detected that something was around our star, maybe after we picked up radio waves above the normal level of background noise around the Sun, what would we be able to do? Well, not much is the answer. The Sun, compared to us, is so far away and so massive that navigating around it and towards it would take months. Even Apollo 10, the fastest spacecraft ever to be manned, with a top speed of just under 25,000 miles an hour, would take an enormous 156 days to reach the Sun, or 5 months. Based on the efficiency we are presuming for this race, 5 months for a single craft, even discounting all the resource limiting and financial factors, would be completely pointless. Not to mention the fact that a spacefaring civilization like this, whose crafts likely could cross the galaxy, would probably be able to get much closer to the Sun than we ever could, and we don't even have any weapons to use against them in this impossible journey. Simply put, if they were orbiting around our Sun, we wouldn't be able to do anything besides watch in horror. But there is another option. If we cannot fly out there, why not shout at them? If we used a powerful enough radio transmitter, like the radio observatory used to blast the Arecibo sequence, then we could send a strong, intelligent signal towards the Sun that would reach them very quickly. Elsewhere in the universe, intelligent signals would have to travel for thousands of years to even stand a chance of falling on live ears. But in this case, we could send a transmission to them very quickly. If they hadn't already worked out from our 200 light-year wide radio bubble, which there is a good chance that they wouldn't have, then this would be the first indication to them of intelligent life. If it was, it could do one of 3 things. It could, in a rare case, scare them off. The presence of an intelligent race that has noticed them might actually be enough to drive them away. By sending a radio shout of sorts at them, we would actually be indicating that we are both intelligent enough to pick them up and brave enough to confront them. Maybe, with the ability to reach any star, they would perceive this as enough of a push factor, and would instead opt for a nearby star like Sirius A with no life around it, where they could harvest it without interruption. Alternatively, they could receive our transmission and just ignore it, and this is probably what they do. Even if they picked up a shout from a nearby planet, just the fact that it is a radio signal would probably indicate to them that we are confined to our own home and unable to stop them. As a result, they'd probably just carry on as normal. Or finally, there is the sci-fi possibility that our shout might antagonize them. They could see this as a battle cry and could prompt them to respond and engage. This would be bad news for us, as don't forget, if this civilization can reach stars, then they would probably have light speed technology, if not faster, and so upon hearing us, they can engage us within 9 minutes or so. Even if they aren't provoked by the signal directly, they'd likely end up engaging us at some point. Dyson shell, ring, swarm or cluster, whatever they would be aiming to build, would take some serious time and resources, far more than is practical to transport across space. As a result, they'd likely utilise the material-rich solar system as their own stellar Lego set. They probably would start mining planets right down to the core in order to provide the deliverables in this device, and this is where our problems really begin to get nasty. To harvest our sun, you would need approximately 1.76 times 10 to the 22 kilometers in surface areas worth of materials. That's Earth harvested right down to the core about 23 times over, just for a thin frame. Zephyrus does a really great video on this where he crunches the truly mind-numbing numbers to see what it would take to build one around our star, and I'll link that in the description. In order to get these materials, every rocky planet in the solar system would be shortlisted. Earth would most likely be on the list, but not on the top of it. Their first target would, if they were smart enough, be Mercury. A small planet, but not only is it the closest planet to the Sun at about a third of the distance of Earth, but Mercury has been surveyed to have possibly the most iron-rich core of any planet in the solar system. In layman's terms, you'd get more metal out of Mercury than Earth. Mix this metal in an alloy with whatever the hell their ships can get across space without being ripped apart or made of, and you have your galactic empire syrup. So Mercury would be the first to go, fairly quickly. As for Earth, well, if we weren't already eradicated, our radio signal might buy us some time. Aliens have an abundance of options when it comes to harvestable planets around this solar system, so why bother engaging an intelligent civilization and wasting time and resources when you could just start with everything around them that cannot do anything about it? Venus would be next to go instead, the second nearest planet, and the planet has an Earth-like structure with that precious iron core they still so badly need. This would be another planet down in a matter of weeks, most likely. Mars wouldn't be that well suited as it's not useful in terms of material composition, and they'd also probably avoid engaging us at this point, and then they'd start reaching gas giants, which wouldn't be much help either. Instead, they'd probably start going for the dwarf planets in our solar system. There are 5 in our immediate solar system, minus the one that was discovered this week, and while small and mostly icy, these would all have metals in them which could be quickly stripped back and taken. On the outskirts of our solar system, there are several minor planets floating around too. Most of these are just considered as large asteroids. Sedna, Pallas, Juno, and all of these would be small but necessary acquisitions. Even if they start running low on harvestable planets, they could choose from any one of the 181 natural moons in our solar system too, most of which are around gas giants, so would be pretty easy to collect and harvest in batches. Asteroid belts in this scenario would probably be left alone as they aren't usually comprised of much useful metal, but this means big problems for us, as the sudden disappearance of planets would start to destabilise much of the matter in our solar system and would drastically change our situation here on Earth. As previously stated, an intelligent civilization might just choose to ignore us and avoid us while they go about disemboweling the rest of the solar system, knowing we couldn't fly out to stop them. It's very unlikely that there would be any sort of alien war for one reason: time would be fighting it for them. With the removal of large planets, moons, and matter from our solar system, Earth's dynamics would change quickly, and not only this, but we would be far more susceptible to asteroids with the displacement of all this rock and fewer planets to act as life-saving magnets. In truth, the brunt of meteorites would be attracted to the gas giants, planets with much larger fields of gravity than our own, but there are so many more asteroids flying around that at least a few would have our name on them. One rogue asteroid wiped out the dinosaurs, so imagine the damage that dozens would do. But before this apocalypse, let's start with the moon. If aliens were avoiding Earth, they could still harvest our moon. The moon also has a similar core to Earth, with metals available, so it would probably be targeted. Losing the moon further adds to our grim extinction prospects. Though an instant vanishing would cause more extreme repercussions, and aliens would likely harvest it over a few weeks, losing the moon would still be devastating. As it became less massive, the balance between the sun and the moon's gravity on our tides would fail, and the oceans would become incredibly unstable. This would also change our orbit, making it faster, and our rotation would become weirder. This also contributes to the endgame of cataclysmic tsunamis across the planet, eventually wiping out well over half the population and most of the low-lying and coastal nations on Earth. For the few humans that remained, society would be gone, and anarchy would ensue, further nullifying any chance of fighting back that we'd have. Extreme weather and frequent ice ages around the world would get to work on removing the remaining population, wiping out most of the world's biomes and ecosystems in the process. With the drenched land and fading sun and changing orbit, the inevitable malfunction of nuclear weapons and the pounding of asteroids from above, it's very likely we'd experience a nuclear winter within a year of their arrival, and 3 weeks of a nuclear winter would drive the human race to extinction, finishing off well over 99.9% of humans. The last days of society would be like something out of The Walking Dead, and this all occurs within months of the arrival of aliens, and they haven't even had to lift a finger or send a single combat unit down to deal with us. Why take on a nuclear-faring civilization that could disrupt your progress and damage your resources, when you could merely just watch them suffer and die from the safety of your ships? With humanity scattered into the tiniest surviving clusters at the barely habitable corners of the now apocalyptic mass of extreme weather and change, aliens probably wouldn't even notice us, and would send their planetary halving devices down to bore into the Earth. It wouldn't make much difference for them. The tarnished lithosphere could be stripped back for the plentiful, valuable iron core. At this point, our journey, perspective, and pathetic resistance would be over. With all the rocky planets and moons harvested, the solar system would continue destabilising. Asteroid belts would continue to break down, and the region would be an incredibly violent place. Probably even for aliens themselves. They'd have to exercise caution when travelling around what is now essentially a solar landfill. The solar system would be this way for hundreds of millions of years, and our solar system would become a sort of Chernobyl in the universe, being eons before life could even have a glimmer of hope of forming again. Even after all of this, the harvested matter would likely still not be enough to complete a full shell around the Sun, but would most likely be sufficient to meet the material needs of a ring or cluster, and while not completely harvesting our Sun, it would be more than enough to utilise a considerable amount and gain control of our stellar region. Distant gas and ice giants like Uranus, Neptune, and the potential ninth undiscovered planet in our solar system might be able to keep orbiting their distance from the chaotic region of the solar system, but they would also receive their fair share of disrupted orbit and activity. And that's it really. Within a few years, the solar system would be devoid of life. There'd be no rocky planets forming for a while, asteroids and debris would make this a no-go zone, and chiefly, the aliens could just start constructing their megastructure without intervention, and with most of the required materials to do so. We wouldn't be able to do anything about it, especially if they avoided Earth. It kind of reiterates what a fragile position we're in right now, and how easily it could be disturbed. Knowing all of this, it's not hard to understand why some scientists think that we should try to avoid communicating with alien life altogether. But could it really happen? Well, realistically, there's almost an astronomical, pardon the pun, chance of this happening anywhere in the universe. There are so many flaws in the logic of an alien race, both coming here and acting that way, and harvesting a star in said manner too. The ends simply don't justify the means. The Boötes void theory that galaxies are being colonised through trillions of Dyson shells is a popular urban legend, but the theory is nothing short of nonsensical. Let's just hope that Dyson spheres don't exist anywhere, and that we are the first spacefaring civilization to go galactic. Then we can rest easy, knowing we'll never have to deal with such a threat. This theorising kind of makes Trump's galactic space army look stupid, as even that would be completely ineffective against this kind of threat, draining valuable finances in the first place. If there are aliens out there, let's hope that first contact is positive, and that they will be far less selfish than us, as how we perceive a galactic conquest of stars says more about us than it does anyone else. Thank you so much for watching. Do you think we'd have a chance against a race trying to capture our own star? What tactics would you use that I might have missed? Be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you're new around here, be sure to subscribe for more creepy conspiracy, space and gaming content published fairly frequently. Thanks a lot guys, I'll see you all soon.